Let's take a look back at some of the best and worst picks from our latest mock draft up next on Fantasy Baseball Today Express. Welcome into FBT Express on Thursday, January 16th. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White. And let's take a look at the best and worst picks from our latest mock draft, a 12-team Roto mock. And let's just jump into round one. I'll pull up the draft picks, those watching on YouTube. And in round one, we saw Shohei Ohtani, Bobby Witt, Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, Julio Rodriguez, and Elly De La Cruz. Then Jose Ramirez, Kyle Tucker, Mookie Betts, Fernando Tatis, Gunnar Henderson, and Francisco Lindor. Scott, who do you think was the best pick in round one?
It's hard to find value in round one, but I'm going to say it's Jose Ramirez who went 7th. I have him 5th, so not a big difference, but I think he's a pretty clear 5th for me. He plays a weaker position, third base, and has been just a mainstay in round one over the past several years, providing power and speed. Really safe choice, really rewarding choice. And he went 7th, which seems kind of late.
Yeah, I really like Gunnar Henderson going 11th overall. I have him as my 6th overall player. Obviously broke out in a major way last season. And based on what we've seen, the talent level, the prospect pedigree, the power, the speed, really has everything to be a superstar in this game. I would expect Gunnar Henderson to build off of that here in 2025 and remain a first-round pick for years to come. So I do like getting him towards the end of the first round there. What about the worst pick in round one, Scott? Who do you have here?
Worst pick in round one, I'm going to say that title goes to Julio Rodriguez, who I don't even have as a round one pick technically. I have him 13th overall. He went 5th here. Of course, last year he was the consensus number 2 or 3 pick. Could certainly perform like a top 5 player. I'm just willing to factor in a little more downside in my ranking of him based on the way last year went, based on the now 3-year trend of him getting off to miserable starts. I'm no longer ranking him as if that miserable start won't happen. Even though the final numbers end up fine, I think we kind of assumed he would forego that in future seasons when we ranked him in past seasons.
Yep, we're in agreement there. I still think the upside is sky high for Julio Rodriguez, but taking him 5th overall over players who are just more proven, like a Jose Ramirez, Kyle Tucker, I do think Julio should be closer to the end of the first round here in 2025. Let's move into round 2, where we saw Jackson Chourio, Corbin Carroll, Ronald Acuna, Yordan Alvarez, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Jarren Duran, Bryce Harper, Trey Turner, Freddie Freeman, Tarek Skubal, Paul Skeens, and Ketel Marte. So some alarms might have went off. You didn't hear a pitcher until pick 22 in this draft, and that was a popular theme in this mock. Frankly, in all the mock drafts that we've done this offseason, to me, that's the best pick here in round 2, Scott. Tarek Skubal, who is, I think, all of our SP1 consensus across the board. I think he should be more like an early to mid-second round pick. And for Chris to get him all the way down at 22nd overall, I thought that was great value. So that's the best pick for me. How about for you?
From a pure ranking standpoint, I would agree. But from a team construction standpoint, I actually forewent Zach Wheeler here at the end of round 3, took a hitter instead, Ketel Marte, even though I'd ranked Wheeler higher because I wanted to build around hitting. And so everyone else did too. And from that perspective, Corbin Carroll as the 14th overall pick, I'm back on board with him as a first rounder. I have him 10th in Roto for the steals he'll provide, for the crazy number of runs he figures to score. From about the second week of June on, I believe he was a top 5 player, something like that. And it certainly answered questions about his shoulder from that point forward.
All right. What about the worst pick in round 2? Who do you have for that?
Jackson Chourio is the first pick, 13th overall. That's about, I think I'm 25th, so about twice as early as I have him. You can certainly understand and foresee him potentially doing that with the power speed combo that he's still growing into, but it's just, the caliber of hitter you're forgoing to take Chourio 13th, passing up a Corbin Carroll, a Yordan Alvarez, first round mainstay types when he hasn't proven that he's of that caliber yet, just seems like an unnecessary risk.
Yeah, it seemed a little bit early for me as well. I'll also throw Ronald Acuna 15th overall out there just because there's uncertainty right now about when he's going to make his season debut with the Braves. We've heard, it could be up to 6 weeks. He might not return until the middle of May. But I will point out that, by the end of March, we'll have more information. So if Ronald Acuna is playing in spring, he absolutely could be worth this pick. Maybe he creeps back into the first round. It's just the uncertainty of right now doing mock drafts in January. I would not be using an early second round pick on Ronald Acuna. Let's take a quick break, and we'll be back right after this.
Stay tuned at halftime of the AFC Divisional Playoff Game for a sneak peek of 1923 Season 2, streaming February 23rd, exclusively on Paramount+.
Welcome back in FBT Express. We're recapping our latest mock draft, a 12-team Roto, and we're into round 3. Rafael Devers, Austin Riley, Zach Wheeler, Wyatt Langford, Ozzie Albies, Jazz Chisholm, and then William Contreras, Jackson Merrill, Logan Gilbert, Matt Olson, Corbin Burns, and Manny Machado. Scott, who did you think was the best pick of round 3?
I think it's Jackson Merrill. Here's the 8th pick of round 3. That makes him 32 overall. So we had Jackson Chourio 13. We had Jackson Merrill 32. In my rankings, they're 25 and 26. They're back to back. So that 19 pick gap, it's no doubt who I'd rather have in this particular draft, Merrill. I think the overall output should be similar for both. Certainly was in the rookie seasons. Merrill, a safer bet for batting average, Chourio for steals, but they'll all contribute enough of everything that I think they're worth drafting more like the 2-3 turn.
Yeah, I thought Jackson Merrill was the best pick in round 3 as well. I actually debated taking him myself. I had the 26th overall pick. I took Austin Riley over Merrill, but those were the 2 players that I was debating, and I almost took Merrill. So I do like that pick in round 3. Scott, who do you think the worst pick was here in the 3rd round?
It's Wyatt Langford. And sort of like what I was saying about Chourio in round 2, you could see Langford performing up to a 3rd round outcome. Of course, he was the much hyped rookie at this time a year ago, and for the most part didn't live up to it. But then he caught fire in September. For that month, ended up hitting 300 with 8 homers, 7 steals, and a 996 OPS. You can understand enthusiasm for Langford coming into this season being renewed after that strong finish. Still has a great skill set, but nobody's taking them this early. What is this? This is pick 28 when his ADP is closer to 48, even 50. So it's at least a full round too early. And I feel pretty confident if this person passed up Langford early in round 3, he'd still be able to get him late in round 4 and could potentially have Jackson Merrill as well. Jackson Merrill actually went a few picks later than this.
Yeah, I actually agree on Wyatt Langford. I wrote him up in Breakouts 1.0, but that's when the ADP is closer to pick 50, right? I mean, just because he has 25 upside doesn't mean you have to draft him with that expectation or as if he's done that already. So I do think if you take him too high, you're kind of sucking some of that value out of drafting someone like Langford in the 4th or 5th round where you usually could get him. For more extensive fantasy baseball coverage, listen to our full-length podcast, Fantasy Baseball Today, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Thanks for listening to Fantasy Baseball Today Express, and we will be back again next week. Bye-bye!